Let's take a look at how I generated random shapes to create the prism lens areas in this Photoshop effect. So every time a user runs the Photoshop action to create this prism effect, the prism area shapes are randomized, and this is helpful as the user can run the Photoshop action over and over and generate new prism areas each time. So let's now go through how I created this part of the effect where the shapes are created and randomized. I'll also go through the process of recording the steps into a Photoshop action. If you're interested in a prism lens effect, I'll leave a link to the Photoshop action down in the description. All right, let's get started. So this is the Photoshop action that I'll be recreating, and if I select it and click play, it will generate a random shape. Now, if I delete this layer, run the action again, it generates a completely new shape. And so these are the prism areas. So I'll delete this layer and we'll delete this action and we'll start from scratch. So I'll click on this icon here to create a new action, and I'll call this one create prism area, and I'll stop it for the moment so I can rename this folder prism. Now the first step is to apply the clouds filter. So I'm going to select the action here and click record, and something that I always like to do before applying the clouds filter is making sure that these swatches are reset. So I'll record changing the foreground color to black and the background color to white. Because if you apply the clouds filter and you say your foreground color is red, the clouds will be red and white. So I need them to be black and white. So I'll record those two steps. So I'll click record again. And the next step is to create a new layer. So I'll hit Control Shift N or Command Shift N, and let's just call this one clouds. And then I will go to the filter menu, down to render, and then clouds. So the clouds are what actually randomizes our prism shapes. So if I stop the action and then apply the clouds filter again using Control Alt F or Command Option F, every time I do that, you can see the clouds are randomizing. Okay. Next, I want to reduce the amount of texture in these clouds, so that will reduce the amount of angles in our prism area shape that we are trying to create here. So I'm going to click the record button and let's go to the filter menu, blur, Gaussian blur, and let's just turn this to around 30. Okay, so you can see a lot of detail is now gone from our clouds. Next, I want to reduce the amount of colors in these clouds so that all I have is black and white. I don't want any gray values. So there are two steps I'm going to record here. Firstly, I'm going to go to the image menu, down to adjustments and equalize down the very bottom here. What that's going to do, that's going to make our brightest values pure white and our darker values pure black. Okay, so that has eliminated some gray values, and the next step I'm going to apply is threshold. So I'm going to go to the image menu, adjustments, and threshold. Where's that? There it is. Okay, and I'm just going to leave that at the default. I'm going to click OK, stop the action. So we're going to use the cutout filter to create our prism area shape, but I'm not going to record this step yet because there's still a few problems we need to work through. So if I go to the filter menu and to the filter gallery, zoom out a bit here, I've applied the cutout filter under the artistic drop down, and I've increased the number of levels to 8, the edge simplicity to 10, so that we have this very simplified version of our clouds. So if I drag this edge simplicity down to 0, we pretty much have the clouds here, and to 10 we get these shapes. So I'm going to click OK. So at this stage I ran into a few problems. Firstly, I didn't want the shape to be separated. As you can see here, it's broken out into 3 parts. So I wanted them to be all fused together. And secondly, I want there to be an easy way that I can just select the shape. So I could just go to like the select menu and down to color range, and then I could click on these shapes here, hold down shift to increase the selection here. But the problem is with this method is that these color values can actually differ each time you run the action. So if I specify an exact color to color pick here, if those color values change the next time I run the action, it's going to throw an error and not work. So I need an easy way to select just a single shape. So cancel that. So I'll undo the cutout filter and we'll start recording the steps to solve this problem. So I'm going to hit the record button, and the first thing I'm going to do here is hit Control or Command T to scale our clouds layer here. And I'm just going to use these inputs up here. I'm going to change the width. I'm going to make sure that the link button is selected to maintain the aspect ratio. And I'm going to change the size of this clouds layer to 20%. Now, if I stop the action and apply the cutout filter again by going to the filter menu and this top one, or Alt Control F or Command Option F, you can see that that has created a much simplified version of the shapes, okay, because we've scaled down our clouds layer so much, there are far less pixels for that effect to work with. So it's created this nice simple shape for us, but we still have that issue with being able to select this shape, okay, because these color values can differ each time we run the action. So again, if you go to the color range option here under the select menu, and if you're thinking you can just select this color range by clicking on it, well, the next time you run that action, that color value might be slightly different, which means the action will throw an error. You might be thinking, well, just select this background portion here. Well, that color can differ as well. And you also have this hard edge appearing because of this box here. So I'll cancel that. So the next challenge was to figure out how to firstly remove this box around our shape here, and secondly, how can I select this prism area shape with a 100% guarantee that when I use the color range selector, that it will always select the shape without worrying about the color values differing when running the action over and over. So this is how I solved this dilemma. I'm going to undo this, so we go back to our clouds, and I'm going to start recording the steps to solve this problem. I'm going to click the record button here, and let's create a new layer, Control Shift N or Command Shift N, and we're going to call this one 50% gray. Okay, and with the layer selected, I'm going to hit Shift Backspace, and this will bring up the fill properties, and I'm going to select the contents here and make sure that is 50% gray. Next, while the action is still recording, let's use the shortcut key to move this 50% gray layer down below the clouds layer. So I'll hit Control left square brackets or Command left square bracket to move that down. So you can see it has recorded that step. Next, I'm going to select the clouds layer here, and we are going to merge everything that we see here onto one layer. So let's hit Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E. So you can see it has added the merge visible command, and we'll just rename this one merge, and we'll stop this for the moment, because what I like to do, and I highly encourage you to do it as well, is to test the action out as you are making it. So I'm going to delete these layers, and I'm just going to select the action here and click play. And this is just to ensure that everything is working. You haven't accidentally recorded some extra steps that you weren't aware of, and that there are no errors. So let's go ahead and hit record again. And we're going to apply the cutout filter again on the merge layer. So I'll go to the filter menu and filter gallery, and I'll just apply the cutout filter again, click OK, and I'll click stop for the moment. You can see now that we have removed the box around our prism area because the cutout filter is now being applied to our entire canvas and not just the area of our clouds layer. This is why we merge the clouds layer and the 50% gray layer together up the top here on this merge layer, so that when we apply the cutout filter, it gets applied to the entire canvas. And before, we were trying to apply the cutout filter to just this clouds area, and you can see the transparency on this layer. We can see our small area of clouds, and a filter gallery effect will not move beyond the visible pixels of that layer. Now this 50% gray layer has also solved another problem for us. If I now go to the select menu and to color range, so now I can click anywhere in this gray area because I know that it is 50% gray, and each time I run the action it will always be 50% gray. So if I click here, you can see that it has selected all the areas in 50% gray, which is everywhere except our prism area shape right here. Now if I click invert, that is now going to select our shape because we're just inverting the selection. So if I click OK, you can see that we have now selected the prism area shape. But now we need to record this step into the action. So I'm just going to hit Control Command D to deselect, and let's now hit the record button, and I'll go back to the select menu, color range, and this is all correct because we have just gone through these steps. So let's click OK. And I'll just stop it for the moment. You can see that it has now added the color range step. So if I just deselect again and play this one specific step, it is going to select our shape again. So the next step is to apply this selection to a shape layer. So I'll hit the record button while the selection is active, and I'll go down the bottom here and select solid color. And let's just make this black. And I'll just rename this layer to area. I'll click stop. So next I'll record just cleaning up these layers a little bit. So I'll hit the record button and let's delete these layers we don't need anymore. So I'll select merge, delete. I'll select 50% gray, delete. And then I'll select clouds, delete. And I'll stop the action again. So there's just a couple more steps to go. We need to now scale up our shape to around the sides of the canvas. So I'll hit record and I'll make sure that we select our shape area. It's very important so that we run the action. It gets down to the bottom here, selects the layer area. And next we want to hit Control or Command T to scale it. And I estimated this to be around 470%. Okay, you can go a bit, you can go up to say 500, just anywhere where it fits in the canvas. So let's just go around 470. I'll hit enter. And you can see it has now applied that transform layer command. If I click stop, twirl that open, you can see it has changed the width and the height to 470%. So the last step here is to fix up these jagged areas that's happening around our prism area shape, and that is coming from the mask applied to the shape layer here. So if I just select the mask and hold down Alt or Option and click on it, you can view the mask. You see that's where the jagged edges are. So we want to record now. I'll hit the record button and I'll make sure that once we're recording that I'm selecting the mask. Okay, so you can see when I select the mask now, it has added that command to select the mask channel. Next, what I did, I went to the filter menu and I went to noise and median. And median does a good job. I'll just increase this radius here. I've just smoothed over those edges. And I went OK to that. So you can see it's applied the median command. And then what I did to reduce that blur, you can see just around the edges of some tips, is just to apply the threshold filter. So image adjustments threshold. Okay, and that just hardens those edges. Okay, let's now see if it's all working. So I'm going to delete the area layer and scroll up to the top of the action here. I'm going to select the action, click play. And there we go, we have a new random shape. So this was the process I went through to create randomized shapes for this Prism Lens Photoshop action. If you're interested in learning more about how I work through problems I encounter whilst making Photoshop actions, let me know in the comments. I'll leave a link to the Prism Lens Photoshop action down in the description if you want to create your own Prism Lens effects. Hope you enjoyed this one and thanks for watching.